How's it going, everyone? It is I, Anime Outlet, and this is part 1 of What If Deku Had King's Powers. And now, before we begin, I would just like to ask you all to please put any gaming suggestions for what you would like to see in the background of my videos down the comments section below, as well as putting your what if suggestions in there as well. As I really have just been playing one game for the past 7 videos, and I don't think that's too good. I should have a variety, so please give me suggestions down in the comments section below. And now, let's begin. It appears you're finally on your deathbed, King. A voice would rain down, echoing throughout the chamber that King and this mysterious figure were in. That may be so, but I won't let my legacy die. King would, as all of the sudden a portal would open up right beneath King, as ere he would throw his sacred treasure along with his son down through this portal. His son was newly born, just around a couple days old, and right after that a massive attack had begun over the world King lived in. And because of this, Izuku wouldn't be able to grow up with his true father, King, and Diane. Izuku dropped into this portal with Chastaful. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong, I am so bad with pronouncing things. So Izuku with Chastaful in its pillow form would be dropped down through this portal. Izuku would be dropped right in just this random off location, and there, walking right by, just so happened to be the #1 hero, All Might. All Might would see this portal open up right in front of him, as well as seeing this child drop out with this pillow, and before it would even hit the ground, it would start hovering in the air. As All Might would walk over to it, hesitant to reach out, he would grab onto the pillow, bringing it closer to him, seeing the child on top of it. What the hell? What type of quirk is this? He would say, looking closely towards the kid and the pillow, seeing how it just floated in the air when he let go of it. As this would be happening, Izuku would be taken back towards All Might's house, as All Might would set himself across from the young child, who was basically just still sitting on the pillow. He would examine Izuku intently before just shrugging his shoulders. Well, I guess you're gonna have to stay here now, All Might would say, kind of scratching his head, kind of still a bit confused about where to go with this. So I guess I should probably get adoption papers set up. He would go to an adoption center, bringing Izuku with him, saying he found him on the side of the road and would like to adopt him. They would go through all the baby finding and missing persons report, just all this sort of things, and couldn't find anyone who was missing a baby. And so Izuku would be adopted by the #1 hero. However, that wouldn't be said on his adoption papers. Rather, All Might wouldn't go in his super buff form, rather going in his he would be in his super buff form, or he would be just in his civilian clothes, I guess you could say. So with his Uku, now the father of All Might, we cut forward 4 years to see an excited Izuku running around, just happy as can be, as he can't wait to see what his quirk is. His father would pat him on the head, telling him to calm down, as Izuku was a bit tiny compared to just All Might, as Izuku really just didn't take as much just genes from his mother and wasn't that tall, rather being more of a fairy than a giant. And so with Izuku having sort of a small stature, he would basically just completely take after his father while having little things like his mother. So with that, Izuku would be basically not even up to All Might's waistline, as All Might was just he's just massive. And Izuku's only 4 years old, so he is not that tall, only around like 4 feet or so. So Izuku would end up being brought to the quirk doctor's office, where he would end up being examined, take some x-rays, this and that. However, because Izuku wasn't born in this sort of quirk timeline and quirk world, he's not going to have the same makeup that would show they have a quirk. Say, for example, the extra bone fragment in someone's foot, which Izuku didn't have, and so the doctor would have to break the news. Look, I'm sorry, but it just doesn't appear you have a quirk. Izuku would be kind of confused before asking if they did all the testing right. The quirk doctor kind of a bit mad about this, as if Izuku was saying he could do the job better than him, like what does this 4-year-old child know? Yes, we must have done it right. Which Izuku would then promptly bring out the pillow that he had basically had since he was a baby, swiftly transforming Chastafel into just its normal Form 1 spear. As the doctor would look at, as Izuku would move it around with his finger with ease, as the doctor would end up thinking for a moment. Well, you must be quite the anomaly, I guess. Consider you weren't the first generation to have a quirk missing that bone fragment. Well, it appears I did make a mistake. I'm sorry about that. We'll write you down as quirk. Quirk, you have a quirk. And what would you like to call this quirk, the doctor would say, with Izuku swiftly just shrugging his head. I don't know. Telekinesis? Izuku would shrug his shoulders, just thinking of a random quirk, as the doctor would say, oh, telekinesis, alright. Okay. It would, as Izuku would end up, just as Izuku, now having his quirk chest, or telekinesis, which the government identifies it as we see Izuku grow up, going through just many different private schools, as Izuku actually would be called the son of the #1 hero, as this is because Izuku was the son of All Might, and this was going to be quite hard, seeing as the public knows where All Might lives, and if a kid just starts walking out of his house every day, it's going to be quite hard to distract. So All Might would just say, it's not worth hiding it, and the public might as well know. So Izuku would end up basically becoming just a quite big celebrity in his country, as he was the son of the #1 hero, All Might, who was basically just the pinnacle of fame at the top of the celebrity world. So Izuku, however, with his father, who was basically didn't have much of an ego, like, say, for example, Bakugo, would actually grow up to be quite humble, as many people would start to compare him to his father, which Izuku wouldn't like that comparison. Izuku could sure tell as he was adopted. He had no similarities with All Might whatsoever, so he knew he was adopted, so comparing him to his father really just didn't make any sense. However, he didn't want to tell them that he was adopted, which could possibly stir up some controversy. So we see Izuku walking into school one day, as after going through a private elementary school, he would go to a public middle school, just deciding, I'll see what it's like. It's loving to try new things. Going there and meeting Bakugo, which would be a sort of person he didn't like at all. You have two exact opposites, someone who's humble and doesn't brag about their power, and then someone who's just complete up in your face, I'm better than you, my power is 1,000 times stronger than yours. So it would make quite the interesting dynamic within the school. Izuku would walk in, resting his head on his arm, with the teacher walking in. Alright, class, it's now your final day, and it appears we have 2 students going to UA High School. I'm honestly quite shocked. This school really isn't known for anything. So, those 2 students are Bakugo Katsuki And Izuku would say as no one really knew what Izuku's last name was. It was just Izuku. So because of that, they're kind of just nonchalant, as Bakugo would stare at him, kind of gritting his teeth. He was supposed to be the best and #1 person out of all of his schools, and now here comes this hotshot kid that's the son of the #1 hero, coming in and ruining all of that, coming in and basically just saying, well, look, I'm the son of the #1 hero, I'm better than you. Izuku would never say anything like that, but that's basically words Bakugo was putting into Izuku's mouth. So, one day, after this, Izuku would walk out of school after the bell would ring, as he would be walking alongside the road. As all of a sudden, he would end up seeing the green-haired, quirkless girl walking along the street as well, who was in his class. You see, for the sake of this video, there's going to be another Izuku, as Inko still exists in this universe, Hisashi still exists in this universe, and so there's no two Izukus. There's going to be a female, basically a female version of Izuku. Now, don't worry, I'm not gonna do some crazy Izuku ship with Izuku. That's not gonna happen. Hopefully. I'm kidding. It's not gonna happen, as that's just quite weird. So, there's still going to be an Izuku of this universe, except they're a girl, just for the sake of plot. As really, I don't like making female Deku female, for there's really no reason for it, as it really doesn't change anything. However, for this, it sort of does change a big key point in, like, the story and plot. So, as Izuku would be walking down the side of the road, he would end up seeing this green-haired girl just walking under an overpass. All of the sudden, Izuku would get out Chastaful with its spear in hand. And as Izuku would be floating it up, he could sense something bad was about to happen. Sure enough, as soon as he turned the corner, he would end up seeing the girl getting suffocated by a massive sludge villain. Izuku would walk when flicking his finger as the spear would go right through the villain's eye, so he would instantly drop the girl version of Izuku, or I'll call her Izumi, dropping Izumi down to the ground as he would start screaming in pain. Izuku would rush in, punching him right in his other eye, grabbing it and yanking it out of the sludge. The sludge villain, now having basically no components to his body, would completely dissipate, as all of a sudden All Might, his father, would appear out of nowhere. As All Might would look down towards his son, Izuku, what happened here? Have you seen the sludge villain? Yeah, he's gone, Izuku would say, tossing up an eyeball towards his father. His father would catch it, looking down towards it. Izuku, how many times do I have to say this? You can't kill villains. Look, I was merely just protecting her, you would say, pointing backwards, as All Might would turn his attention, as the girl would instantly pick up all of her books that she had dropped, scrambling. Hello, All Might, she would say, kind of fangirling, seeing All Might. As this would happen, Izuku would end up just walking away, as the girl would towards him, just thanking him, which Izuku would put up a hand. No problem, he would say, walking away. Izumi would get an autograph, or she would end up grabbing hold of All Might, not getting enough of all of the questions. However, while she did this, the eyeball would end up dropping out of his grip, and it would end up resuming with the sludge. And the exact same thing happens in canon, just like normal My Hero Academia, except Izumi now instead of Izuku. Izuku is the son of King. So with Izuku walking down the side of the road, all of a sudden an explosion would end up happening as he would end up turning towards it. As he would end up looking over the crowd, he would see Bakugo Katsuki struggling under the grip of a massive sludge villain. Izuku would see this, end up stepping forward about to do something, but that same green-haired girl that he had saved earlier would jump in, pushing him backwards, rushing in, peeling the sludge off of Bakugo. The Cyclops sludge villain would look towards the girl, smiling. "Oh, you come back? I can't believe you came back to me," he would say, with Izuku jumping in, his spear out, chest full ready, as he would end up going right towards stabbing right through the other villain's eye with such precision, as it would end up killing the sludge villain. As the entire crowd would look on, they would see Izuku falling to the ground as he would end up standing up, as his chest would come back, turning right back into a pillow. You know, that was really dangerous," Izuku would say towards the girl, which she would look up towards him. "Yeah, I know," she would say, stuttering her words, really not sure what to say. "Well, maybe think about it next time. You know you are quirkless, but you did buy enough time for me." "Thank you," Izuku would say towards her before walking away. All of the people would end up moving around, making room for Izuku as he would walk out, as they would all just be in awe of seeing All Might's son in person. He indeed was so strong, just like all those news articles they had read about him said. We end up cutting forward to see All Might end up catching up with the young green-haired girl, saying how she has the heart of a true hero and that he would like to give her his quirk. With All Might would end up just receiving a question from the young girl. "But what about your son? He's so much stronger than me. You saw he saved me twice." "Yeah, but I tried to give him my quirk. He is quite the hero. He says there's always someone better. Plus, he already has quite the power. Could go to someone who really needs it." Which is quite admiring, but yeah, that's where we are now, All Might would say. And basically, the same stuff happens like in the normal story, except with the Izumi now having one for all. If you guys can come up with any better names for this girl version of Izuku, please tell me down in the comment section below, as Izuku and Izumi might get confusing, but if not, tell me that as well. So as we end up seeing Izuku walk in to the UA campus, he could have taken the basically selection exams. I can't remember the name. It's like a special exams where Todoroki, Momo, and a bunch of other kids were in, which Izuku could have taken those, but he decided not to. Rather, he would get in fair and square like all the other kids. So Izuku would walk in, take the written exam, and would end up going to the hero exam as well. As Izuku would be stretching, all of the kids would kind of be looking at him, sizing him up, as if they were about to fight him. They would all be looking at the skinny-looking Izuku, and would once again compare him to his father. "Isn't that the son of All Might?" "Yeah, it is. Why is he so small? Don't you think he'd be a lot more buff than that, like his father?" Izuku would end up just looking at all of them, kind of glaring at them for comparing him to his father, which all his own stare would sort of back them off. As Izuku would end up seeing the doors open, would instantly grab hold of his spear as he would launch off into the distance. As Izuku would end up dropping off his spear, controlling it with his finger, flicking it around the entirety of just this road he was in, as he would completely shred through mountains upon mountains of robots. Izuku would continue just completely going through all of them, as all of the students back behind Izuku would stare on just in complete awe. Moments ago, they had just been sort of saying Izuku wasn't all that he was basically supposed to be. He wasn't looking strong, he wasn't just crazy strong or athletic looking. He looked skinny and weak, but here he was completely destroying the robots, racking up points, while they were sitting there just watching him. As Izuku would look back towards them, smiling now. "Oh, what's come on? Do y'all get cold after we destroy all these robots? You really shouldn't judge a book by its cover, Zuko would say, pointing towards all of them, before grabbing hold of Chastaful and basically flying away with it. As Zuko would end up jumping down into the next horde of robots and would completely destroy them with ease, not having to use any other forms besides Form 1 of his spear. However, all of a sudden, a massive zero-pointer would appear out of nowhere, as Zuko would end up hearing a girl yell for help. As this kept happening, Zuko would turn towards it, as he would see a brunette-haired girl just struggling to lift up any rocks off of her crushed leg. Zuko would take a step before running off in a sprint, rushing towards the robot with his spears following close behind him. Right as Zuko was about to jump up and do something, right as he jumped up into the air, he would catch a hold of his spear, holding it into the air, stopping in midair. As right there, the same green-haired girl, Izumi, would jump into the air, her fist clenched up into a ball, punching the zero-pointer with such power, sending it flying backwards. As Zuko, seeing that happen, would end up getting behind the zero-pointer, catching it, stopping it from hitting any of just the other examinees that were behind it. As Izumi would fall down to the ground, being slapped by Uraraka, saving her from falling down and hitting her head on just the road below. As Zuko would end up getting up from the robot, pushing it off of himself, he would end up asking if everyone behind him was okay. He would look towards the girl before muttering under his breath how reckless she was, but she did end up saving one life, and if he wasn't there, probably would have cost her about 5. As over the intercom, Zuko would hear that the testing was over, he would end up walking out of basically the entire city-looking thing. Walking out, as he would end up stretching, going back to his father's house. "How'd you do?" his father would ask him. Zuko would shrug his shoulders. I did alright. But I talked to your little, I don't know what you call it, your successor about being reckless. She almost killed 5 people. She what? I'll let her explain it to you. I don't really feel like telling a story right now. Zuko walking back with All Might just shaking his head. I do think I did quite well, though, Zuko would say, sort of smiling, with his back turned towards his father, as his father would smirk. That's great to hear. And that is where part 1 of What If Deku Had King's Powers comes to an end. I hope you all did enjoy this part, and if you did, please consider subscribing, as it really does help this channel out. And you can even be notified if you click that bell when the other parts of this series do end up coming out. I thank you all for watching once again, and goodbye.